Welcome back to Views with Hughes, your gender-free news. This is Jerome Hughes. So let's go ahead and get right into it. Now, today we're diving deep again into the absolute disaster that is Disney Star Wars The Acolyte by Leslye Headland under Kathleen Kennedy. Now, after this season ended, we discovered that, even like up here on the chart, episode 5 has not made it onto the top 10 Nielsen streaming ratings chart. Now let's break down why this is a massive failure and why Leslye Headland, the show's creator, doesn't deserve the second season for The Acolyte by Leslye Headland and Kathleen Kennedy. Now this is coming from basically a lot of people and stuff who was critical about Disney Star Wars The Acolyte by Leslye Headland, but I'm going to go ahead and just simply get straight into the point itself. The Nielsen ratings are pretty solid indicator of what people are actually watching. Despite all the hype and the promotion, Disney Star Wars The Acolyte by Leslye Headland under Kathleen Kennedy couldn't even, crack the top 10. Now, just think about that for a second. Disney, with all its resources and marketing power of getting the bots and stuff, couldn't even push this show into the top 10. And this isn't just a minor oversight or a fluke. This is just a clear sign that people are tuning out. Now, the Nielsen ratings, on the other hand, measure how many people are actually sitting down and watching the show itself. Now, it's an industry standard metric that networks and streaming services use to actually see how successful shows and movies are. So when Disney Star Wars The Acolyte by Leslye Headland under Kathleen Kennedy, despite being a part of the biggest franchises in the world, can't make the top 10, that's a major red flag right there, okay? And that says something a lot about what the Star Wars fans want, but let's talk about the Disney shows and everything. These are the same folks who would defend anything Disney does, no matter how bad it is. And they're out in full force trying to ignore or even downplay the Nielsen ratings. And they're saying things like the Nielsen ratings don't matter, or they're just outdated, or streaming is different. But, let's be real here. If Disney Star Wars The Acolyte by Leslye Headland under Kathleen Kennedy was, actually successful, doing well, these same Disney shows would be parading the ratings around like a badge of honor. Now, the fact that, they're trying to brush it off now just shows how desperate they are to try to spin this failure of Disney Star Wars The Acolyte. Now, if you're enjoying this video, please like and subscribe and share this video far and wide across social media. Now, the truth is, the Nielsen ratings, they do matter, okay? They're just a snapshot of what people are actually watching. And right now, they're showing that people are not watching Disney Star Wars The Acolyte by Leslye Headland under Kathleen Kennedy. Now, Disney shows can try to spin it however they want, but the numbers don't lie, okay? And this show is definitely a flop. Okay, now we can also talk about, Leslye Headland, the same Leslye Headland who openly admitted to not being a huge Star Wars fan before taking on this project. Well, and it shows, but Disney Star Wars The Acolyte by Leslye Headland under Kathleen Kennedy, it was a mess from start to finish. The writing is weak, the characters are bland, the story is all over the place, and it's also clear that Leslye Headland doesn't understand what makes Star Wars great. This is the same Leslye Headland that actually stated that she loves all the Star Wars movies and everything. Can't even choose one. And why should Leslye Headland even get a second season? Leslye Headland hasn't even earned it. First season was an absolute failure, both critically and commercially. Giving Leslye Headland another shot would be like rewarding failure, basically. And let's not forget, Leslye Headland is the same person who made a lot of controversial statements and shown a clear lack of respect for the Star Wars legacy itself. There's George Lucas Star Wars, and we don't need any more of that. Now, Leslye Headland and her, approach to Disney Star Wars The Acolyte by Leslye Headland under Kathleen Kennedy was to infuse it with Leslye Headland's own brand of storytelling, which clearly didn't even resonate with Star Wars fans. Okay, and Leslye Headland simply just put in there the personal things that happened in her life with the family and stuff. She admitted it before, because I shared in the previous video. And the show itself lacked the magic, the depth, and that made the original trilogy so beloved. But it felt like a hollow shell filled with forced diversity and woke political correctness rather than compelling characters and engaging storylines. Now, honestly, there's no good reason for Disney to even try to greenlight a second season of Disney Star Wars The Acolyte by Leslye Headland under Kathleen Kennedy. Now, the ratings are abysmal. The fan reception, well, I would say weak but lukewarm at best, and the creator Leslye Headland has shown that she doesn't even have what it takes to handle a franchise as beloved as Star Wars. But if Disney is serious about saving Star Wars, then they need to start by cutting their losses and start moving on from this disaster. Okay. Now, a second season of the Disney Star Wars The Acolyte would just be throwing good money after bad. And it's time for Disney to actually admit that they made a mistake and start listening to the fans. Now, we want quality content that respects the Star Wars legacy, not more of this agenda-driven, poorly executed nonsense. But let's take a look at it in a broader context, okay? Now, Disney Star Wars has been struggling with this fan base ever since the Disney sequel trilogy. The Mandalorian brought some hope, showing that, there was still a way to create content that the fans love. But Disney Star Wars, The Acolyte by Leslye Headland under Kathleen Kennedy, is simply a step backward, okay? It shows that Disney still has learned its lesson. Star Wars fans want stories that respect the lore, not the ones that try to rewrite it to fit a modern agenda, okay? Now, the Nielsen ratings have exposed Disney Star Wars, The Acolyte by Leslye Headland under Kathleen Kennedy for what it is. Simply a failure. Okay, Leslye Headland doesn't deserve a second season, and Disney needs to stop pandering to the Disney shows and start paying attention to what the fans really want. Now, if they don't, then they're going to keep driving this franchise into the ground. Now, it's time for a change, as we all know, and that starts with admitting that Disney Star Wars The Acolyte by Leslye Headland under Kathleen Kennedy was simply a failure. Okay, I wouldn't even call it a mistake anymore. It's a failure because they chose this. Okay, and let's hope that Disney will try to make the right call, even though I'm doubtful. But I'm gonna go ahead and get into the nitty-gritty details. Now, when we look at the structure of Disney Star Wars The Acolyte by Leslye Headland under Kathleen Kennedy, the issues become even more apparent, okay? The plot is all, as they say, convoluted with multiple storylines that don't even connect, okay? They don't even interconnect in a meaningful way. And it's as if Leslye Headland tried to, cram as many ideas as possible into the show without thinking about coherence or pacing. And she actually said that before. Not in that exact wording, but she said it. But in each episode feels disjointed, and the overall narrative arc is hard to follow. Now, character development is another major flaw. The characters in Disney Star Wars The Acolyte by Leslye Headland under Kathleen Kennedy are just basically poorly fleshed out, okay? They lack the depth and the relatability. Instead of creating nuanced characters with clear motivations, Leslye Headland seems to just focus on ticking all the diversity DEI boxes. Representation is important, but it should be done naturally, and representation should never come at the expense of storytelling. Now, in this case, it feels forced and superficial, detracting from the characters', believability. Not sure if that's a word, but I said it anyway, and the audience's ability to connect with them. But the dialogue in Disney Star Wars The Acolyte by Leslye Headland under Kathleen Kennedy is equally problematic. It's often stilted and unnatural, making it hard to invest in characters' interactions. And Leslye Headland's writing fails to capture the essence of Star Wars, which has also always been about blending the epic storytelling with relatable human moments. Okay, but instead we get preachy monologues and awkward exchanges that break the immersion. All right, and let's not forget the visuals and the production value are typically where Disney excels, but even here, Disney Star Wars The Acolyte by Leslye Headland under Kathleen Kennedy falls short. Now, the special effects are definitely inconsistent, with some scenes looking polished while others appear rushed and underwhelming, and the costume and set designs don't even feel like they belong in Star Wars universe. They lack the worn, lived-in look that the fans have come to expect from the George Lucas days, instead of the feeling too clean and out of place. And finally, going to go ahead and talk about the fan reaction. We all know the Star Wars fans are passionate and vocal, and our feedback should not be ignored. But from the social media comments on YouTube to YouTube reviews, the consensus is clear. Disney Star Wars The Acolyte by Leslye Headland under Kathleen Kennedy is not what fans want. All right. They feel the Star Wars fans felt let down by a show that promised, to expand the Star Wars universe, but ended up diluting it with subpar storytelling and lack of respect for the source material. Now, I'm going to be fair here and honest. Disney Star Wars The Acolyte by Leslye Headland under Kathleen Kennedy is just a prime example of what happens when creators lose sight of what makes a franchise special. Okay, you see, Leslye Headland her lack of understanding of Star Wars, combined with the poor execution and misguided priorities, has resulted in what on a show like The Acolyte that fails on multiple levels. And Disney needs to acknowledge that these failures and take steps to correct their course if they want to go ahead and regain the trust and support of the Star Wars fan base. And it's also time for a change, and that starts with admitting that Disney Star Wars The Acolyte by Leslye Headland under Kathleen Kennedy was basically a bad choice. Now, we can all hope that, Bob Iger and Disney will make the right choice and make the right call, but let's face it, this is what Bob Iger wanted. I'm just hoping that he'll just go ahead and admit and that he felt that he messed up and he made the wrong choices. So let me know your thoughts about this in the comments below. Also, be sure to include any additional thoughts you may have on this particular topic. If you enjoy when I share this video, go ahead, smash the like button and share far wide across social media. And if you haven't done so already and you enjoyed all the content that I put out there, go ahead, subscribe to the channel. Click the bell notification so that way you're notified of future uploads and updates. Till then, peace.